and gentlemen, welcome to the Real Estate World Podcast. All right, so now we're live again. So this is round two. For some reason, our feed just died, and I believe that it's due to the fact that the whole world is probably streaming live on Facebook right now. So I'm sure the system is just getting taxed. And we had a situation earlier in the week where we couldn't even go. The system wouldn't work. So anyway, this is Scott Picaric, and this is the Real Estate World Podcast. Today is Thursday, April 2nd, the year of our Lord 2020, 12:13 p.m. Central Daylight Time. And I am making a point to tell everybody exactly when we're recording this. Hopefully in, months from now, not years, we look back and we say, gosh, was that crazy? God, were those crazy times. The problem is, I think it's going to be longer than that. But typically people, when they do podcasts, they try to have a more evergreen type of approach to the content they're creating, whether, it's not just limited to podcasts, but evergreen being, hey, I can pull this off the shelf and I can use pieces of this 5 years from now, and it would still apply. So if you're talking about, financial principles, you try to talk about them in without, saying the date or the time of year or whatever. But I think it's important that we do be very clear as to, what day this is, because things are changing by the hour in some cases, right? But today my goal is to unpackage or unpack the CARES Act. And you say, well, gosh, that came out almost a week ago, Scott. Well, I've been studying this, and I've had a team of folks that I've been bouncing off my interpretation. They've been giving me theirs, and to kind of help us understand what is in this for not just, small business owners or individuals, but kind of for everybody. We're not going to talk about large businesses. I don't pretend to even I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I think I can handle the small business owners and the individual, because that is a demographic that's near and dear to me, right? I know lots of people, and I know lots of small business owners, and I know a lot of people and small business owners have been affected by this, in some ways terribly impacted very negatively by what's going on, not just the health aspect of this, but the economic and the financial. There is a lot of small business owners who've been compelled to shut down for good reason. Many would argue, and they may not open again. The aid that's coming may not come fast enough. It may not be enough. So I am going to go through a couple things that just kind of highlight a couple things. If I can pull up my share here on my screen, we're going to do this today. The quality of your live video has ended. Well, yeah. Sorry, that is, let's find that, and we'll get rid of that, and we'll get rid of that, and we'll get rid of that. So a couple things I'm going to pull over here. Housing protections. Okay. If I'm nothing else, this is a real estate show, but we're going a little deeper the last couple of weeks here. So this is an article that was written by Patrick Kearns in Inman on March 28th, 2020. They talk about, obviously there's some direct assistance, $1,200 payments for many Americans. There's small business loans, expanded unemployment insurance. These things have been covered by many outlets, but I want to review them quickly. So, are you eligible for the $1,200? Now, there's certain people who are not. All right. If you were claimed on your parents' income tax as a dependent, apparently you're not going to get the $1,200. If you didn't file a tax return in 2018 or 2019, you may not. Your most likely, or you're not going to get the $1,200 from what I understand. If you didn't file a return in 2018, but you did work in 2019, make sure you get that return filed as quickly as possible, because I believe that's how they're figuring out who gets the checks. And if you've got a direct deposit account with the Department of Treasury, which is where your money ultimately goes. If for those of you that do payroll deduction, and your money gets deducted automatically from your paychecks, you don't have the pleasure of writing a check to the Department of Treasury every year like I do. As a business owner and being self-employed for the last 20 years, I like to sometimes have my wife write that check because it stings. I do believe that people would change their tune a little bit with how the money is wasted in government. If instead of having a payroll deduction, everybody had to write that check, whatever the amount of your taxes is, every 2 weeks, or whatever frequency you get paid. If you had to actually get your money and then turn around and write a check to whatever governmental agency, whether it be the federal government, the state government, your property taxes, to your the county when you pay them, I think people would have a little more interest in how the money is spent. When it's just automatically deducted, it's like it never existed. And I'm sure there's people who would argue that wouldn't be the case. There's probably some people who said, no, I'd write more. Well, for those of you that say that, you can write more. There is the Department of Revenue in the state that you live in and the federal government will take gift funds. So if you do want to give more, they will take it. So a little tongue in cheek there, but yes, they will take more if you want to give more. There are some protections in the CARES Act for single family homeowners, renters, multi-family building owners, even some someday in the future prospective homeowners. So the FHA, well, here's one thing that's changed that isn't good. As of last Friday, FHA, DVA, U.S. Department of Agriculture loans, the minimum credit score has gone up to, I believe, 660. There used to be exceptions for that. You're not getting a lot of publicity on this. And let me see if I can pull up an article on that. But let's see here. Undoubtedly worse. Okay, so many people who were qualifying for mortgages just got knocked out, and also there's a lot of down payment assistance programs out there. Most of those are off the table right now. I think if you're in Minnesota, and I can only speak to Minnesota, and again, this could change. This could have changed from yesterday, but MHFA, you can still do like very low down payment. I think it's $1,000 or something that you can do with those types of loans. So there's still hope, but again, this stuff changes almost daily. So make sure you're talking to your lender on that. So if you're a homeowner, most of your mortgage servicers are providing an option for a forbearance, but you have to really understand what that means. For many people, if you're unemployed, you're waiting for unemployment, you don't qualify for unemployment, or there's some peril here, right? Because if a forbearance is just basically stacking up those payments until 4 or 6 months or whatever down the road, if you had a $2,000 a month payment or whatever, and now suddenly they say, okay, yeah, you have 4 months off, but on month 5, you have to pay $10,000. For a lot of people, that's not a situation where that's going to work. So look at a little bit more. What I saw today was these loans would just be these payments would just be added to the end of your loan term. I don't know how they're going to do that. Like, it's not as simple as hitting a switch. I know a lot of the companies right now are basically taking names. You get on a list and they're trying to figure it out, but they don't have it figured out yet. So they're saying, give us your name, sign up, give us your email, and we're going to give you an update in 7 to 10 days. We're going to mail you a letter, and it's going to give you further instructions. So I tell you guys, this stuff is being made up as we go right now. Those of you that survived 2008, 2009, boy, the shit hit the fan back then. This is way, way bigger. And it's, when you see the impact to retail, restaurants, travel, hospitality, this is just the beginning. All right. This is like the impact of people not being able to spend money. It's going to cascade through multiple industries. So we don't know what it's going to end. The question I get all the time is, well, what's this going to do to housing? Well, for housing, I think the impact will be there at some point. I just don't think it's going to be massive like 2008. I don't believe it will be. Commercial properties, yeah, trust me, the carnage is starting there. And that I believe will get ugly. And I'm not trying to be doom and gloom, and I'm not trying to be negative. You see the number of restaurants that are closing, which is all of them right now, with the exception of some takeout. And I'm telling you, your fine dining joints aren't doing takeout. They're not doing delivery for the most part. Okay, there might be a couple that are. I know the exceptions are there, but they prove the rule. And many of these places weren't on solid finance. Didn't have great finances before this. A lot of them just won't reopen. Or if they do reopen, they're going to file for bankruptcy and open it under a different name, and they're going to buy that restaurant equipment at a discount. That's what's going to happen. And these leases are going to be renegotiated. Any commercial property owner right now that's not flexible is probably going to be the first one who's not going to get paid. I know, and I've talked to a lot of people. This isn't Scott, sitting in his basement making these things up. It's happening. Retailers, those many retailers are going to go online. There's going to be consolidation. It's going to happen. It's a fact. There's a lot of retailers that had plans. JCPenney, Sears, whatever, the plans to close X number of stores this year. I guarantee that number has doubled. Right. So those are my predictions. I know that making predictions, you expose yourself to the trolls, but the trolls are already here, folks. The trolls are already here, and they're just playing into my bit. They're just playing into my hands when they try to troll me. So the more negative you are on the comments, the more you're doing my bidding, old trolls, and you know who you are. So anyway, protections for multifamily, like this one's a little tough. I mean, unlike single family owners, multifamily building owners need to document the financial hardship. So this is if you have Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac loans. You can get a forbearance up to 3 90-day periods. Most states nationwide have some type of tenant restrictions on evictions. Right now, we did a video on some of those restrictions last week for Minnesota with Matt Engel, and it was good. Some people were like, well, why are you talking about evictions? I'm like, well, I'm not talking about it in a negative context. We're trying to get the information out to people. Like, these are the rules, and you need to follow the rules, right? So now, because there's the fact that you can't evict doesn't mean rent isn't due. Rent is due, but I will say most owners, and I think every owner that I work with that I know is willing to be flexible right now. Like, they're waiting for people to get their assistance checks. Most people should be eligible for the $1,200 assistance check, right? People who are paying the market rate rents. Unemployment, if people are laid off, they're unemployment. Some people have decided they got laid off and they decided to change careers, and they've instead of getting unemployment, they're going to work for a delivery company like an Amazon or a Shipt or anything logistics right now in supply chain that has anything to do with medical. I imagine is hiring. Correct me if I'm wrong. In fact, if you're listening, my loyal listeners out there, if you know someone who's hiring, put it in the comments, because there are people looking for work. There are people who want to do something. The hardest thing for most folks right now is to have to sit at home and not be able to do anything. I'm not saying that's not what they should be doing, but it's hard for a lot of people to not be able to do something, right? And it's very frustrating for people, entrepreneurs who have businesses that were forced to close. We had Pat Crosby on last week, and he's talking about, he's like, I want to serve my community. You know, he's like, there's mental health aspects to fitness and working out, which I absolutely agree with. I went for a 5-mile run this morning, and it was liberating. It changed my whole perspective on the day. And I was kind of groggy and slogging through the morning, and I went for a 5-mile run, and I felt like $1,000,000. Now I understand, you know, I wasn't fast either. I'm not telling you I was like Prefontaine out there, but but I did it 5 miles, and it changed my whole outlook. The endorphins that creates are amazing. So credit protections, so there's some stuff here, but what I want to get to is, I'm going to stop the share real quick so you guys can get a really good look at my ugly face. I want to get to so the benefits to the individuals. They're there. I'm going to move my screen here. I do want to talk about one thing on the unemployment insurance. And one second here. Sorry, I'm looking at my screen. I'm going to share my screen again. All right. My apologies since I moved this. All right. I do hope that what you're seeing is the Minnesota unemployment insurance screen. There we go. So if you are an applicant for unemployment, there is extremely high volume. The Minnesota, I'm going to speak specifically to Minnesota, but nationwide, the unemployment numbers are like we've never seen before. The people applying for unemployment insurance, and you know what? That's what it's there for. You know, if you're a gig economy worker, independent contractor, I will tell you that I looked through this over the weekend or early this week, and if you're in Minnesota, be prepared for some delays. If you are trying to get in touch with state of Minnesota, you're going to have a hard time. So, get out here. You can apply online. What they are doing though is they are separating applicants by, how do I apply? There's instructions out here, but because of the call volume, I think they're afraid the site's crashing, or maybe it is. But you can apply online from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. Sunday through Friday. It's not open on Saturday. All right. And if you look here, the last digit of your social security number is one. They have this broken down into different numbers. So if you're not a 1 or 0, 1 or 2, last digit social security number, it's Monday 345, Tuesday 6, 7, 8, or 9, on Wednesday, and then anybody on Thursday, Friday. So right now anybody can go out and apply for unemployment in Minnesota, and this is going to vary state by state. But the reality is that you are just going to have to take your best shot here. And if you're an independent contractor, you got to be careful. I think there's some ways that they can trip you up in terms of what if you put the wrong answer to the question that doesn't seem intuitive. I actually started going through here, started the process, and maybe I will offline step through it and then post it as a webinar. So if anybody is curious, everybody wants to know more about this process, and you think I can help you, please private message me. I will do what I can, and we'll leave it at that. So the other thing I want to talk about is the SBA. Now, part of this act is the disaster assistance for small business owners. So there's two parts to this. One is the Paycheck Protection Loan for small businesses. And what that is if you run a small business and you don't lay off people, meaning you keep your payroll, you keep everybody who's currently working for you, and hopefully you can, everyone's staying busy, but there's always something to do. I guarantee you. If you can keep everyone employed, you can get a loan from the Small Business Administration. And this loan is basically, it takes the amount of your wages, and I believe the calculation is the average of one of the ways to calculate is the average of the last. Let's see here. There's a form. So let me go back to. We'll get rid of Minnesota here. Minnesota's gone. SBA, U.S. Small Business Administration. All right. So go out to their site, and they have an economic injury disaster loan application. Now, what is this? This will get small business owners, if you have a business that has to have been in operation as of, it has to exist as of February 1st. So if you have a business, and I'm looking off the notes here right now, just double check these dates. I believe I thought it was February 15th, but I'm seeing on this thing it's February 1st. And here's the deal: this changes. There has been different numbers that depending on what you read and when you read it, it has been changing. So just keep in mind, go to the Small Business Administration website, and you can, if you want to find out, eligible, okay, choose one. A business with not more than 500 employees. I'm not engaged in the illegal activity. No principal of the applicant. Okay, whatever. It works for all this. Click through that. Put your legal name, your trade name, your EIN, which is your employee identification number, your social security number for sole proprietorship. Organizational type, is the applicant a nonprofit? No, you're not a franchise. Gross revenues, cost of goods sold. So you go through this process, and I'm not going to fill this out. This gets you on the list for an immediate emergency $10,000 loan, which is forgivable. Now there's some conditions there, and I will tell you the audit part of this is happening on the back end. So there is a lot of risk for fraud on here, editorial comment, but they're not, the idea here is to get an emergency loan to as many small business owners as possible, sole proprietors, LLCs, C Corp, S Corp, whatever. Here's the issue. One of the issues, there are many, and it's not a perfect system, but one of the issues is that there's I believe of this, there's like $10 billion allocated for this. So if 1 million people get the $10,000 loan, then we're there. The 10 billion's gone. I think there's something like, I think it's like 25 million, 40 million, like a ridiculous and insane amount of small business owners, sole proprietors, independent, people who operate as independent contractors. And I don't know exactly who all is going to qualify for this, and who's going, what are the criteria to really define need. From what I've read, let's see, it says, okay, a business applying for an EIDL, okay, emergency, what does that EIDL stand for? Oh my gosh, it's probably all over here. But one of these EIDL loans, you may request an emergency advance from the SBA for up to $10,000. The advance must be paid by the SBA to the business within 3 days after receipt of the application. An advance received, this is what we're finding out. An advance received does not have to be repaid by the business, even if the SBA ultimately denies the business application for an EIDL. Yeah, that's bad. So sorry, I'm looking through this a little bit. So that's the first step with the EIDL. Now, you can apply for, I believe, up to $2 million with this EIDL. Interest rates are subject to change, currently set at 3.75%. Term lengths for the EIDLs are either 15 or 30 years. Personal guarantees are not required for loans up to $200,000. The idea, they're used to pay expenses incurred in the ordinary course of business. Ordinary expenses include, but are not limited to, providing sick leave, to employees unable to work, maintaining payroll, meeting increased supply chain costs, rent and mortgage payments, and repaying debts that cannot be paid due to lost revenue. In general, existing rules applicable to the terms of EIDLs apply. However, two existing requirements are revised for EIDLs obtained through December 31st, specifically for loans. Yeah, so we talked about this. Personal guarantees not required for loans up to 200,000, and you're not require that the business is unable to obtain credit elsewhere. So, all right. So that's that. So that's the emergency line. Go to SBA.gov. Now, the Paycheck Protection program, it's for employers of 500 or fewer employees, can obtain loans under this program through the Small Business Administration Section 7A loan program. Program to pay for payroll costs and other expenses, interest on mortgage loans. Interest on mortgage loans, other secured debt, rent, and utility costs from February 15th, 2020 through June 30th, 2020. Payroll costs include employee salary up to $100,000 a year for an individual employee, wages, commissions, payment for vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave, health, and retirement benefits payments, and other costs. It's not entirely clear from we don't know. We don't know like who's independent contractors are covered, if those are considered payroll costs. I assume they are. I assume that those are payroll costs. So anyway, loan eligibility. There's we on the SBA.gov it has what you're eligible. So basically, this payroll. Paycheck protection loan. It's non-seasonal business. You need to go through a SBA lender. So an SBA authorized lender. And I will tell you that lots of banks are signing up to be this. I know there's been recently, I read that there's reluctance by several of the larger banks to participate in this program because of the potential for fraud and the liability that the banks may incur as a result of that. So keep that in mind. I don't know if the country's largest banks, and no, I'm not picking on anyone. I don't know that these are accurate, but like Wells Fargo, Citi, Chase, are they doing it? Bank of America? I don't know. I don't know if they're all going to participate. I do know several local lenders here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul, also known as flyover country, are indeed doing this. In fact, I would be shocked if most of them didn't. And there's going to be some explicit guarantee that they aren't going to have liability with these loans. I believe. I mean, there is a lot of potential for fraud here. To make no mistake here. There is, especially with that emergency $10,000. Like, it's very easy to sign up to get that. The money's going to be gone. I think it's going to be the biggest deterrent there. So you can the loan details for the paycheck protection loans. They may obtain loans for up to 10 million. However, the loan a non-seasonal business is eligible for would be the lesser of the average monthly payroll costs during the year prior to making the loan times 2.5 or 10 million. So the lesser. Okay, so standard fees, interest is capped at 4%. No yearly or guarantee fees for the loan, and all prepayment penalties are waived. Loan payments may be completely deferred for at least 6 months, but not more than 1 year. Loan forgiveness. Loans used for expenses during the 8-week period following the date of origination may be forgiven. Again, we talked about this: payroll costs, mortgage or rent expenses, utilities. Yeah, so this, look it up. SBA.gov has the information. We'll keep you posted on this. This is an ongoing thing. So anyway, and I do have a copy of the application here, if I can find it. So the treasury.gov has the Paycheck Protection Program application form. Here it is. And it's not a long form, but it does have all the information and instructions. So if you have a complicated business entity, I would definitely be talking. Well, I'd be talking to your accountant. Either way, I know I am. I want to make sure I don't if we move forward on any of these things, we don't do them incorrectly. So yeah, that's interesting. I don't know if this form has changed at all since this was yesterday, I believe. Well, I guess we can go out there and check and see if it has. I don't believe so. Yeah, if you go to home.treasury.gov, it has this right on a red banner right on the page. For small businesses seeking direct relief from COVID-19, click here to learn more about paycheck protection loans. All right. So, and people ask, why do I care about small businesses? Because I am one of them. Well, I guess no. The reason I care is that small businesses make up like 60 to 70% of all businesses in this country. The number of employees that small businesses employ is incredible. And we need these companies to be able to reopen their doors and survive this, so that there's jobs that people can go back to. So yeah, the reason I care about business is because I care about people. All right. If it comes right down to it, people, we need to have a place to go. Small businesses, these are the nimble, the companies the entrepreneurs that take I think Dan Sullivan said it, you take one level, you take something at a certain level of capability and you take it to a higher level. That's what small businesses do. That's the ingenuity and the resourcefulness. You look at it as, large companies. I have nothing against big companies. I like big companies too, because they employ lots of people, and lots of people who work there make money and they support their families. And I think that's a phenomenal thing. I like it when people have money to buy food and clothing and pay for housing. That is a good thing. All right. I am not. Are there some bad eggs? Are there some bad people out there? Are there people who commit fraud and manipulate the system for their own personal gain? There absolutely is. There absolutely are. Absolutely always will be. There were. We got to find those people and expose them. But the small, the small businesses, the medium-sized businesses, the large businesses, they provide jobs for people. We want to come out of this pandemic with the best possible outcome for people, health-wise and economically. All right. I harp on this every day. Stress kills people too. And seeing the stress of a bank account that is slowly or quickly draining is not good. Okay. That's not good for your health. So we need to get help for people, both giving them good health tips, good healthy lifestyle choices, and also economically, we need to find ways to help people. So that being said, I'm not going to pontificate too much further on that. But there are resources. You could private message me if you're looking for that. One thing I'm doing right now, I'm reading some of the classics. This is Jim Rohn's Seasons in Life. I love this book. It talks about the different seasons, the winter, and we're going through winter right now. So I'm going to read a little passage here. Winter, like spring, is a season which can make its brief appearance during any season, as a brief reminder of its ultimate power. In midsummer, while we consciously tend our carefully planted crops, winter can momentarily descend upon us as if threatening to take away the fruits of our efforts. Winter can make its threatening appearance during the season of opportunity, the spring, and if we do not quickly respond to cancel its potentially devastating effect, the season of opportunity will be taken from us by one of the storms of life, leaving us with yet another full spring of waiting, or another full year of waiting. Ugh. Winter can prematurely appear during the season of harvest, the fall, just as we are about to reap the rewards of expended human effort, and leave us with crops or results which are of little value. The first great lesson in life to learn is that winter will always come. Not only in the winter of cold and wind and ice and snow, but the human winters of despair and loneliness, or disappointment, or tragedy. It is winter when prayers go unanswered, or when the acts of our children leave us shaken and stunned. It is winter when the economy turns against us, or when creditors come after us. It is winter when competition threatens, or when a friend takes advantage. Winter comes in many forms, and at any time, both to the planter of crops as well as to the person in business, or even to our personal lives. The arrival of winter finds us in one of two categories. Either we are prepared, or we are unprepared. For those who are prepared, who have planted abundantly in the spring, guarded their crops carefully during the summer, and harvested massively during the fall, winter can be yet another season of opportunity. Winter can be a time for being grateful, both for what we have as well as for what we can yet achieve. Winter is a time of rest, but not excessive rest. It is a time to enjoy the fruits of our labors, but not a time for gluttony. It's a time for warm conversations, but not a time for gossip. It is a time of gratitude, but not a time for complacency. It is a time to be proud, but not a time to be egotistical. What we do with our time, with ourselves, with our friends, and with our attitudes during the season of winter determines what we will do with the coming spring. We are meant to constantly improve our conditions, ourselves, and our results. We either improve or we regress, for never do we remain the same. If we do not improve, it is because we do not use our intelligence, our reasoning, and our full potential. And finally, what we do not use, we lose. Through lack of use, we may lose our intelligence, reasoning, potential, and strength. And when lack of use or misuse costs us these worthy human attributes, we predictably regress. So, we're in winter right now, folks. And whether you prepared or didn't prepare, it's a time to sit back and, number one, if you're alive, be grateful for that. If you have nothing else to be grateful for today, be grateful you're alive. Start there. Start your list. My challenge for you every morning is to write down 3 things you're grateful for, and then write out 3 positive outcomes that you got from the day before. Make that your daily habit. and do it for a month. Do it for the month of April 2020 and tell me if your outlook doesn't improve. I'm going to leave you with that today. Thank you. This is Scott Picard with the Real Estate World Podcast. Thank you again for listening in. We will be back tomorrow with a special guest, Rob Maida. Rob is in Florida. He runs a real estate referral network. They are getting pummeled right now with the pandemic, and we are going to hear Rob's thoughts on that and how he is keeping a positive attitude. Thank you, everyone. Like always, if you need me, find me on Facebook, find me on the internet, and I'll do what I can to help. I'm out here. Bye-bye.